As everyone knows, Mars is the planet of fighting. Okay? Now, fighting is really just such an interesting word. You know, when we think of that, I think of people punching on each other or going to war. But in the context of what Mars is really doing, it's fighting for the right to be yourself. Okay? What I mean by that is the world is not necessarily going to welcome you. Everyone in the world is not going to necessarily welcome you living as yourself. But you have to do it anyway. And so there's this point where you know what's right for you. You know what you need to do for yourself. But the world or people in the world or your parents or somebody is not going to like it. They're just not going to. And it's then that Mars steps up and says, I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, I'm going to fight for my right to party, right? Party as yourself. That's what I always think when I have to use my bad Mars. You know, okay, I got to fight for the right to party. From that really lame song. But it just reminds us that the whole world is not going to open up and say, yes, be yourself. Yes, you get to be yourself. Yes, you get to be yourself. In fact, it does the very opposite. Okay? It tells us, no, you don't get to be yourself. The most important people in our lives say, no, I don't think so, or I don't want that. And then you have to do it anyway. And that's where Mars comes into place. Okay, it's fun to watch people with a great Mars and watch their ability to fight for the right to be themselves. Wow, it's done without any conflict. They just kind of breeze through stuff, you know. They just do it. So, you know, let me step back a minute to this idea that we sort of have to. Why do we have to? Well, if everyone was following their inner voice, all the waves of the sea would be dancing harmoniously, right? And what was right for you, all the other waves would go, oh yeah, that's obviously right for you. We're all in this great orchestrated movement. Unfortunately, on Earth, we're not in a very well orchestrated movement anymore. We're confused, we're lost, we're all following, you know, ideas, we're all following our wounds, we're following the dictates of our pain and insecurities, and we're not following the dictates of our higher self. As a result, when you finally realize, yes, this is what I really have to do, the people around you who aren't following their higher self won't see it, they won't understand it. So immediately you're going to have conflict. Okay? Now, you know, and also people just think they know better than you, especially parents, right? They always know better than that 5-year-old, don't they? So when we get to Venus, we've said, okay, this is worth keeping, but it's not the end of the road. Okay? Remember, Venus is the people and the things that support you in further developing as yourself. They're the things you need, the resources and people and things, that you can have the energy to move forward and really embrace yourself and have the highest experience of yourself possible here. Okay? But then everyone wants to stop there. It's like, remember, Venus is the vehicles. It's the car. It's like going to the Grand Canyon, and then people get there, they don't want to get out of their car. They just want to keep driving around the Grand Canyon. Well, I can't really look into it from here, but I'm not going to leave my car. And then you go, oh, I'm going to leave the car. And Granny says, no, don't leave the car. Your wife or your husband says, oh, no, don't leave the car. It's like everyone wants to get in the car and never get out. So you want to remember, we want to get out of the car. But there's people in the car that don't want us to get out. They're like, this is great. This is the life. We got everything we need. We're happy. We're content. We're secure. We have each other. You know? And, you know, it's not the end of the road for anyone in that household, in that, you know, in that family, in that anything, in that school, in that organization. You still have to reach your individual mark. You're trying to find your individual spark and live it and experience it. And that's going to mean time away from those very things that have supported you and which you are trying to support in return. Okay? Because ultimately it becomes an individual journey. We're trying to get to Jupiter, which is very much a planet of an individual experience. Okay? It's your most creative, joy-filled experience that you can have on this planet. And ultimately, yes, people support it, but it's your unique experience. Okay, it's how you're going to shine as your own star. And so we have to use our Mars to say, okay, but now I have to do this. To the very people we love. Okay? Then also, you've got this nice Venus foundation set up. You have some good things going for you. Well, people are going to want to take it. You know, you've got your farm in the Middle Ages. People might want to come take your food. You know? You're living in a safe country. People might want to come invade it. So yeah, when you have something good, there's actually people who might just want to take it. And then you have to fight to prevent them from taking it. So Mars is also the fight you do to protect your Venus, protect the worthwhile things in your life. All right? And that also has to do with taking care of those things, putting the energy and working for those things, continuing to work and protect those things. Because those things can be damaged. You know? People think that when they have something good, they can settle in. No. You have to, once you've got your orchard, you have to protect it. Once you have a relationship that works, you have to protect it. And it's Mars that we use to protect those good things. Okay? But at the same time, this Mars is what we use to step out of those things and say, I have to go do this now. Okay? So, the world is, and you know, the world, the people in it, the things around you are not supporting your highest interest. Okay? They're just not, because they're not supporting their own highest interest. So how can they, right? So that's why Mars is the rebel. Mars is the one that says, hey, wait a minute. I'm going to do this. Astronomically, of all the planets, Mars has the most erratic movement. You know? Most erratic movements out there. You know, he'll move through a bunch of signs, you know, he'll go through signs a month at a time, and then he'll be in a sign for 3 to 6 months sometimes. He'll just be bouncing back and forth and be in that sign so long. So, he's an erratic planet. And, yeah, sometimes we have to have this erratic behavior of, yeah, this is all going well, everything's good. And a lot of people think that's the highest point of life. You've got your good job, you got your great place to live, a safe place to live. You have a good family going. All right, you're done. Nothing left to do. A lot of cultures are all about just getting that point. Not realizing there's a whole other level of experience waiting for them. Traditional cultures are like, okay, that's it. We've done it. No need to do anything else. And yes, there is. There's a whole world of yourself to explore beyond that. Those things are really just there to support you in exploring that. And if you don't go explore it, you've wasted it. You're wasting it. That's like having money in the bank and you die without spending it. Okay? In India, traditionally, once a person hit about the age of 50, which is the age of the sun, they're expected to have fulfilled their family obligations. And at that point, they were meant to, you know, the idea was to go live in the forest and develop their spiritual life. Okay? And that's, again, meaning once they get older, is to go into their Jupiter experience, because the spiritual life is a Jupiter experience. But the Jupiter experience ultimately means being, you know, finding your own joy, really finding your own joy. But a lot of these traditional cultures, they stay at Venus. And anyone who does anything different is a rebel, and people talk about them, you know. And then they try to stay at Venus the rest of their life. And, you know, it's not going to be fulfilling, okay? So, in this modern world, we need to be aware that there's so much more to life than these good, beautiful, secure things that the world can give us. There's our own experience of life that we want to deepen and take further. And that's an experience of ourselves really living the right life for us. And what that is, it can be such various things. Who knows? It's different for everybody. And so the strength to step out of that is Mars. Okay? So basically, the people around you aren't going to always grasp what you next need to do for yourself. Especially because a lot of what we have to do for ourselves is the Mercury phase. We have to go try things and fail. Everything is not about success. Everything is about an experience. Okay? So people can go try things and fail, and their parent can be sitting there, I told you you shouldn't have done that. Yes, they should have, because that failure was an experience that's going to help them find their right life. Okay, it's a step in the process, as I explained under Mercury. So it's not like, when we follow what we need to do, it's always going to be perfect or successful. But it's the right experience for us. It's what we needed to do to experience ourselves in a certain way that's going to help us continue that journey of experiencing ourselves. And if we skip that step, we can't move forward. Okay? So it's real simple what Mars is doing. It's a really simple planet. Now, his self aspect is Sattvam, which means strength of character. Okay? That means a sense of determination, a strength of character. Okay? Mars needs to be determined. So if you have a healthy Mars, you're in the habit of being determined about what's really right for you. If you have an unhealthy Mars, your determination to do what's really right for you wanes. When the stress comes up, when people start saying, I don't know, or give you that look of what are you doing, or gives you the sad face that I don't want you to do that, your determination fades. A good Mars are just determined. I mean, I watch these people, and I watch these people because Mars is my, more difficult planet. And I watch these people and I see how they just are focused and determined, and they just do it. Not with a lot of noise, not with like cannons and guns going off. They just do it, and the things on the side that are saying don't do it, their mom, their sister, their lover, whoever, that's saying, oh, I don't think you should do that, they literally act like they don't even see those people because they're determined. Now, Sattvam, strength of character, really does mean that. Do you have the strength to actually go live as yourselves? That's what Mars is about. Because you know it, you've gotten to the point where you realize it, you have the resource base to go for it, and meaning you don't have to sell your soul to a job or a lifestyle that robs you of all your time where you can't even go have developmental experiences. You can do it, but now do you actually have the strength to do it? In the world that's not going to welcome it. Okay? Perhaps when you're done they'll welcome it, once the process is over. But until then, people tend to want things to stay the same. So much of the world just wants things to be stagnant. They don't want change. They don't, the devil is better than the one you don't, right? So even in situations that aren't great, most people would rather just stay there. Okay? It takes a lot of strength to move forward. Okay? And that's what that's the key of Mars. Do you have the strength to move forward when the opposition shows up? Okay? And if not, you won't move forward. Okay? The bodily power of Mars is movement. Okay? Which is primarily located in the feet. But it's ability to move our body. It's mobility. So if you're having problems with your Mars, you'll get mobility issues. You won't be able to move. Worst case, you end up in a wheelchair. At best case, you won't be able to move your pinky because you smashed it, okay? So anything that impairs your mobility is showing that there's something going on with your Mars energy. And I did mention it, but with Venus is your manual skills. It's your quality of motion. Okay, Venus and Mars are like a pair in a way. You remember how I said Moon and Mercury sort of working in tandem? So are Venus and Mars. Okay, so your quality of motion is Venus. Your grace, the dexterity with which you move, the skill with which you move and act is Venus. So I forgot to mention in yesterday's video, but if Venus is, habitually used bad, people's movement fails. Not their movement, that their quality of motion decreases. Maybe they have dizzy spells. Maybe they can't move properly. They lose their dexterity. They fumble things. They drop things. Anything that impairs the quality of their motion, okay, the dexterity of their motion. They can't use their hands skillfully anymore. Anything of that sort is indicating that they're, something's going on with that Venus. It's been habitually used badly. For Mars, I always look for mobility issues are a big part of it. Okay? Okay. And again, Mars is really, do we really have the strength to move forward? It really is about moving to the best place. It's moving towards Jupiter, which is the next planet we're going to talk about. And if you can't move towards Jupiter, yeah, you might find yourself with mobility issues in your body where you can't move around the house even. Okay. The Dhatu of Mars is Maja, which literally means seated within. It has to do with the marrow. It has to do with something really deep inside of us. And of course we know the quality of bone marrow. You know, they use bone marrow for healing. It's like there's a lot of power, a lot of strength in the bone marrow. And you could almost say that we have two sources of power. We have the vitality of Venus, and we have the strength that's deep within our bones. That's the Mars. Okay? And our immune function is directly related to the health of our bone marrow. Okay? How that works out, I talk a lot about in the astrological anatomy course. So, it's this inner fire, you know, that gives us the core of our strength. It goes back to the sattva, okay? Are you able to, do you have the inner strength to really progress in the face of the oppositions, all right? And the oppositions are not always negative things. They're like, hey, I'm inviting you to this party. But your inner self says no, but then you're like, oh gosh, I don't want to, you know, I'm not going to fight for my right to be myself and say no to the party. And next thing you know, you go to the party. It's just even the nice things in life that pull us back into a stagnant place. Okay? What's really interesting about Mars, of all the planets, he's the only planet that didn't have a wife. He's actually considered to be a brahmachari, which means a celibate student of life. Okay? Because Mars is the planet where we really have to take off on our own. Okay? We always consider Saturn as this loner planet. Okay? Well, Saturn's a loner planet because everyone else died, and so you're the last man standing. It's that kind of aloneness. But Mars is where you step forward to be alone, or you step forward to do your own thing. And that doesn't mean you're alone. It just means you're like, I'm going to do this without you guys, because I have to do this for myself. That's how Mars works. He's a celibate student, the brahmachari of life. So he's going to say, I need to go have this life experience. Okay? And move forward with discovering himself. Okay? Now, what's really interesting is that the sun rules our bones, right? But the bone marrow within the bones is ruled by Mars. And it's considered a whole different part of us. And there's a lot more to this dhatu than just the bone marrow. People who studied Ayurveda can take this further. But really we think of this, Mars is seated within the sun. It's an integral part of the sun. Mars, Sun, and Jupiter are like this trio of planets, just like Venus, Mercury, and Saturn are a trio. And then the moon sort of hangs out with the trio of Sun, Jupiter, and Mars more, but then he's exalted by Venus, so he has to hang with the other trio some too, you know. But, so these three planets have this link in that Jupiter, as I talked about, is moving the sun around. Mars exalts the sun. Mars is the marrow within the bones of the sun. These are the three self-planets. These are the planets that are here to make you be yourself. Venus, Mercury, and Saturn are the three planets that are here to help you operate in this world where you're not alone, in this give and take world. And then the moon, he is a planet of the self, but he has to adapt and work with this world to get what we need. So he's like this intermediary between those two. Okay? All right. So, this Mars quality is really the strength of your bones is based on this Mars quality. The sun is exalted by Mars. The strength of the sun is based on Mars because the sun's exalted in Aries. So, yes, you have this, knowingness of what you need to do given by the sun. But do you have the strength to fight for it? That's what Mars is about. Just like your immune function is centered in the strength of your maja, your bone marrow, and everything that Dhatu has to do with our system. That's our ability to fight off the things that want to kill us. So in our lives, do we have the strength to step past the things that want to kill us? Not intentionally, but even just out of their own best wishes for us, which just don't mirror what we really need to do for ourselves. Your mom might love you, but that doesn't mean her best wishes for you mirror the experiences you need to have for yourself. In fact, I'll guarantee you, it doesn't. Okay? And so literally what happens from the beginning of life, we get trained to follow along. And there's a point where we have to be the rebel, where we have to be Mars and say, no, I'm not doing that, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go have this experience or live my life this way or whatever. And if Mars isn't there, that's where we get stuck. Okay? And of course, when we get stuck, we get frustrated. Anytime you get stuck on any of these planets, you'll end up being frustrated in most cases. You know, people say, oh, this person's so angry, but they don't have a bad Mars. It doesn't really matter. They got this planet bad and this planet bad, so they're still stuck. And when we get stuck, it's this human response, right? Okay. Mars is the commander, all right? He's the general of the king, the sun. The sun says, I have a mission. You're like, I hear the mission loud and clear. And now Mars, the commander, has to make that happen. Okay, so ultimately we have to make it happen. We have to be determined and say, okay, I'm really going to do this. And it's a scary thing to really do it, because that's why you need the general, right? I mean, war is a scary thing, because you're stepping outside of the box when you really start using your Mars. Okay? You're stepping out of everything that's known and comfortable and secure, but even though 90% of that might suck, it's still normal to you. And you're stepping out of that, and you literally are leading the battle. The fun thing is that the army is ruled by Rahu and Ketu. Okay? So the army you're leading is walking down the road of Rahu and Ketu. So ultimately, where your Mars has to always lead you is to Rahu. Okay? I always say in the Rahu course, Rahu needs courage. Right? That's all it needs. It needs courage. You have to just be brave enough to go for it where Rahu is. That's because if you just have the army, Rahu and Ketu there, they're just going to cause you trouble. They're going to be a bunch of drunken soldiers, right? But when the general shows up, when the courage shows up, Mars shows up, then that army can fulfill its task, and you can fulfill your Rahu-Ketu mission. Okay? But if the commander shows up drunk, or the commander doesn't lead, or the commander is in the habit of running instead of moving forward, shutting down and hiding in the woods instead of taking the bridge, or walking across the bridge because some people are going to, shoot at him, then you're going to lose the war, and your life gets stuck. Okay? Mars is such a very important planet when it comes to how our Rahu and Ketu work out. And then, of course, Ketu gives the results of Mars. Okay? Which means if you haven't commanded your life effectively, if you haven't had the strength to move forward the way you really need to, you end up with a much, much more difficult Ketu. Because then the reality you're used to, your comfort zone, Ketu, is really, really wrong for you. Okay? Because that army is in complete disarray because the commander didn't do a good job. Okay? So, so that's Mars. All right? Now, the deity of Mars is Kartikeya. All right? And Kartikeya is a very, very special deity because, in the mythologies, the Devas are always fighting the Asuras. So the Asuras are not actually demons. They're more like the Titans of Norse mythology or Greek mythology and the giants of Norse mythology. So there's these sort of super powerful humanoid beings, okay? And, the Devas were losing the war again. And so, they realized they needed a new general. And Vishnu told them, go have, Kartikeya, be your general. They're like, wait a minute, he was born 7 days ago. And Vishnu's like, yeah, that's why you need him to be your general. Okay? The rest of you aren't smart enough, okay? So this 7-year-old kid is going to be the general. Wow. And, he becomes a general and leads them to victory finally. Okay? The devas represent our higher self, following our higher self. The survas are everything that's trying to pull us down. Okay? Now, the reason Kartikeya was able to win this war is because he had the innocent mind that allowed for it. The fight that we really have is to fight our conditioning, the lack of innocence. All the ideas that have been hammered into our head, the traumatic things that have been hammered into our head, the ideas that have been hammered into our head by the trauma of growing up with parents, okay, as a mammal. All these conditionings are making us stuck from being ourselves. That's the number one reason we don't listen to our higher authority. So then we need Mars, a 7-day-old, to show up and say, I've only been on Earth a week. I haven't been screwed up yet. I can still just follow my instincts, which are true. Instead of trying to please my mom, or trying to please my dad, or competing against my sister, or trying to prove that bullies don't bother me. All of this stuff that we go through. And so the next thing you know, we're not even concerned about living as ourselves. We're just concerned about following a conditioning program that hasn't ever worked. And then but we keep doing it. So a healthy Mars has the innocent mind. It can maintain enough mental innocence that it's in the habit of not following the conditioning. And it just follows what's coming out of you, which is what you're supposed to follow. A difficult Mars is a Mars that's in the habit of following its conditioning. And the conditioning can be so powerful, and it's placed so subtly in ourselves. And sometimes we'll remember, oh yeah, I remember the day that dad or mom or this. And how hearing that or experiencing that, you just turned a switch off or a switch on. And you said, okay, conditioning on. I will never do that, ever. And then when it's the right time for you to do that thing, you don't do it. Okay? Everything your parents ever did or said to you, there's a time when it's wrong for you to do that, and there's a time that's right for you to do that. And you only know which time is right if you have an innocent mind and can listen to yourself come out in response. Okay? But what happens instead is that we decide to never do that thing we heard or felt or experienced, or to always do that thing. And as a result, it's conditioned. I'm never going to be mean like my mom was mean like that. Well, maybe it's time to be mean like that sometimes, but you've decided never. So every time it's actually right for you to be mean, you're not, and your whole life is going to hell because you're not being mean when you need to be mean. You need to be mean sometimes. It's like that story about the snake, right? So the snake came to the rishi and said, why is everyone scared of me? He goes, they're scared because when you bite them, they die. If you don't bite them, they won't be scared of you. The snake's like, oh, okay. So the snake goes out there and he stops biting people. A few weeks later, he comes limping, let's say, into the rishi's camp and all beat up with stone bruises in him and, wounds. And the rishi goes, what happened to you? He goes, well, I took your advice and I stopped biting people. And as a result, they weren't afraid of me, so this is what they did to me. And the rishi said, oh, I didn't say not to hiss, which means, yeah, be mean, scare people away, scare people. Give them a reality check when you have to. That you're a dangerous creature with the right to live, and they get in the way, they're going to get hurt, and they can't abuse your rights. You have to do that in this world. It's not a peaceful place we live in. You don't need to kill them and bite them, but you sure got to hiss. And so, yeah, sometimes it's important to be mean. Sometimes being mean is what's going to help them and you the most when it's done at the right time. So this idea, don't ever be cruel, is a bad habit. Anytime you decide you're only going to do one thing all the time, it's a bad habit. You have to do the right thing at the right time. And everything that you ever hated about your parents, that you decided you're never going to do, is going to be something you have to do at some point in your life. And your life's not going to work out until that time comes. And it's the innocent mind of Mars that's going to let you decide to do that thing. And everything that your parents did that you loved, that you decided you wanted to adopt and be just like them, there's a time in your life when you're going to have to do the very opposite, and that'll be the right thing. But if your mind doesn't have the innocence, you won't know when that time comes. Well, you might know, you'll feel it, but you'll ignore that inner guidance. And instead, you will do the conditioning thing. You'll do what you've been programmed to, what you hypnotize yourself into doing. We're all suffering from hypnotism, really. Our subconscious mind has been hypnotized to a habitual force to be a certain way. And the only planet that's going to get you out of that is Mars, which means you're going to fight your way out of it. You're going to resist the conditioning. And the best part is, that makes the fight so brutal, is the very people in your life that become your Venus people, that are your support group. You chose them because they mirror some of the qualities of your parents. So you're going to have to rebel against them at some point. Okay? Unless you're really, really lucky and you had such great upbringing that you don't have a lot of garbage conditioning and you're just flowing as yourself already and you don't have a battle. But since you're in astrology, I know that's not you. Every one of your clients is not going to be that person either. If one of your clients knows somebody and they buy them a certificate, a gift certificate to come get your reading, that person might have had that kind of life. But anyone who comes to an astrology reading of their own volition or goes into astrology did not have that kind of life. And so you can be sure that everything I just said really applies to them. That they had screwed up parents, that didn't, by screwed up I mean that the way the parents were living was not very correct for the individual, meaning was contrary to that individual's true way of being. As a result, their support group, the people they marry, the people they fall in love with, are going to have mirrors of those parents, similar qualities to where that person is still dealing with that parental issue. And so there's still going to come the time where they're going to have to decide to rebel against and do what's right for them. And it's not a rebellion against the parents anymore, it's a rebellion against the very people they love. Okay? And the only way to win that rebellion is with Mars, to simply take your rights to be yourself and move forward. The funny thing is, the great thing is that most people are rational people. Okay? Yes, there's some people that are so deeply wounded, it's a truly impossible situation. But most people are rational people. And if they see you take that step and they're upset at you, but then they see the result of it, most people are like, wow, this is good. Okay? And I see that a lot with people with the good Mars. They just do it, and then the people always come around. The people at first might be go, oh, I can't believe you do that, But the people who, don't do it would never know how they might be supported in the future for that. It is actually a test if those people are really right for you. Okay? Even though they might offer resistance and you have to use your Mars and fight for your right to party as yourself, if you take that step and they see that you're actually doing better, that there's something about you that's better, they're going to be happy to see that. Okay? Most people actually will. Okay? Unless, you've got a hell person in your life, in which case you'll now know, wow, I really needed to get away from hell person. Okay? And hell person is often a parent. Okay? And if it's not a parent, it's a lover, right? Okay, so that's the Kartikeya aspect. Remember, we have to free our minds from conditioning. And only that happens at Mars, where we step past the conditioning. We have the will, the strength of character to say, I'm not going to live under conditioning, I'm going to live as myself. The best technique, that's really good for this, I like a lot, is Byron Katie's The Work. It's total Mars. It's all about getting rid of your conditioning, realizing it doesn't matter, and just go do what you're doing. Okay, I really recommend that to people who are struggling on the level of their Mars. Her technique is a complete Kartikeya spiritual technique. Okay? All right. The wisdom, the knowledge of Mars makes a person a Nyaya, which basically means a logician, somebody who deals in logic. Mars is really, really logical. Okay? In the spiritual world, we don't really consider logic as this really good thing, as this very useful thing. We're into like wisdom and all this stuff, and psychic phenomenon, which is Venus, But no, logic is the cornerstone of all of those. Just where I used to say, if it's not logical, it's not true. And I love that, because Mars is actually my strongest planet in Shadbal. I have like a really unusually strong Mars. So I've always been a really logically centered person. Logic is simply the ability to understand the parts. Everything works in a logical order. So somebody who has logic, you can just drop a bucket of bolts in front of them that's a motor to a car. And over time, they'll figure out how that goes together, even if they know nothing about motors. There's only one way all that's going to fit together. And so they'll be able to figure it out through a logical process, right? So logic is just that there's only certain things that can happen. We like to think all the doors are open, but no, there's a logical order to everything. If we actually understand the parts, if we can see all the parts, we can always figure out what's going on. Now, if somebody dropped a bucket full of bolts in front of us that was half a motor and half a transmission, we would never be able to figure out how to put that together. But we would logically conclude this is two different things. And you would have two partially assembled parts that no way could logically fit together. So you would still arrive at the truth. Okay? So, when it comes to Mars, are we examining our lives logically? Really, are we in the habit of being logical? It's the other end of common sense. Venus and Mars together give us common sense, let's say. Okay? Or are we living our lives illogically? Which means, are we living our lives in a way that's just not true? That's all under conditioning. See, under conditioning, you're dealing with fake parts. When you're living your life out of conditioning, you literally have a motor of fake parts in front of you. All right? And you're trying to put it together. There's a logical thing you need to do. It's really logical. If we could just get away from all that BS. Like, okay, going back to the motor analogy. I come to you and I said, do you know what an air conditioner does? And you say, yeah, it cools the air. I said, okay, here is a bucket of bolts and parts of an air conditioner. Please put it back together. So you're convinced now that it's an air conditioner, but it's not. Okay? It's a motor. But I've just told you it's an air conditioner. And every time you go, are you sure it's an air conditioner? I'm like, yeah, I just took it out and it fell apart. Put it back together, please. And so I've conditioned you to thinking it's an air conditioner. So now you can't make any sense of any of it. Because you're so sure it's an air conditioner, you're building it from the very premise that it's an air conditioner. So if your logic is based on preconditioning, you're going to do everything illogical possible in the book. The perfect example of this is the current so-called epidemic of COVID. Beyond that, the whole medical system. So the medical system has this concept. This is the defining concept of modern medicine. There's things out there that want to kill you. We're under attack. It's an attack-defense ideology. It's not about you can be healthy. It's not about there's things you can do to be healthy. It's not about lifestyles can make you healthy or unhealthy. None of those concepts exist in modern medicine as a foundation. The foundation of modern medicine is you are under attack, and we are here to defend you. We are the royal guard of your body. That's the bottom line of modern medicine. So everything they see the body go through is based on something's attacking you. So if you get depressed and you get sick and you go to the doctors, they say, oh, you're under attack. Let me defend you with the antibiotics. So they give you the antibiotics. And whatever little infection you had goes away. But you're still depressed. 4 months later, you've got a more serious problem. You got a urinary tract infection. And they say, oh, it's really great. We defended you from the last attack. But the enemy has come on stronger. They've gotten reinforcements and now they're in your urinary tract. But don't worry, I have this antibiotic to give you. And they give you the antibiotic. And it stops the pain in your urinary tract infection. And you're still depressed. In fact, you're more depressed. And then the disease progresses. And 10 years later, you're dying in the hospital of pneumonia. And the invasion is so great, no amount of antibiotics will cure it. It's all bullshit. You're not under attack. Your inner environment, your lifestyle is determining your health. If those things are bad, you're going to die. No attack necessary. But because everything they see is based on attack. You're depressed. Well, you're probably depressed because, you had this virus in you. No, you're depressed because your boyfriend dumped you. Duh. Well, your boyfriend dumped you because a virus entered his mind and made him dump you, I bet. I mean, just the logic these guys are operating on. So, if the very foundation of your life is based on an illogical foundation, a foundation that doesn't stand up, you're still going to base everything that happens to you on that illogical foundation. So for instance, if every time you said, Mom, I want to do this, she said, why do you want to do that? That's stupid. You have this foundation that everything you want to do is stupid. That's your foundation. What I do is stupid. Okay? So, the minute you want to start doing something that's you're approaching that, oh, this must be stupid. Okay? That's your logic system. It's all based on, I must be stupid. So since I really want to do this, it must be the wrong thing. Okay? That's how easy it is to get stuck. This conditioning we have is not based on anything real. It's based on the bullshit of our parents not living as ourselves, and therefore not allowing us to live as ourselves. And then we've adopted enough bullshit that we don't logically live out our lives. What you need to do and how you need to do it and how you need to follow your inspiration is a logical process. And if you had the condition of you can do anything that is in your heart, you can do what you're meant to do, you're here to have a beautiful experience of yourself. If we'd been given things that were remotely true, we wouldn't struggle so much. But instead, we're getting severe repercussions simply for asking for a toy that is going to develop us and give us an experience that's going to help us find our lives. And instead of getting the toy, the parent's like, that's a stupid toy. Why do you want that? In effect, telling the kid, what you are, what you're inspired to be, is stupid. Okay? So, if we start something with a false statement, as in, you're under attack, and the only thing that matters in this world is that you're under attack by things that want to kill your body, and everything the doctors see is based on that premise. Okay? Which means everything they see is misunderstood. And it's the same with us. If our premise is that you're an idiot, we're an idiot, I'm an idiot, then everything we feel we need to do will be misunderstood. Instead of being seen as a choice for a great life, it's seen as, I'll probably just get in trouble again. Okay? Now, to get past all that is Mars. Mars is basically, are you in the habit of following your conditioning? Or are you in the habit of not following your conditioning? And if not, get in the habit of, if you are in the habit of following your conditioning, get in the habit of not following it. Follow anything else. Don't even if it's not your inner voice, follow anything else but your conditioning, and there's a good chance you'll do better. So if you're confused about what your inner voice is because you're so conditioned, write down, I feel that if I do this, I will go to hell. I feel if I do this, my mom will never look at me again. I feel if I do this, my dad would kick my ass if he was here right now. Write down all the things that you would never do for this reason or that. And then go do them. Just go do them and see how it feels. That will be better than following those conditionings. You know? Okay. Because then there's a chance they're actually right. Whereas you know the things you're doing out of this conditioning is wrong. Okay. The taste of Mars is bitter. Now, bitter has a negative connotation, but in this context, bitter is a taste. It's an essential part of our system to recognize bitterness. Okay? And that is that medicines are bitter. The bitter foods are the medicines that heal us. So this idea of the bitter medicine, it means, are we going to do the things that are maybe hard but necessary? It's like eating neem. Yeah, it's hard to eat that stuff, but sometimes it's necessary. Okay? Most medicinal herbs are just happen to be bitter. That's the nature of Mars. It's not something you do all the time. The same way you don't live on bitter food. You'll get sick if you live on bitter food, okay? You live on other flavored foods. But if but there's times we need to eat bitter foods. And the same with Mars. We're not here to always be the rebel, always step away, always say, I'm not going to do what you guys are doing. Okay? But there's critical moments where we need to do that. All right, so Mars, more than any planet, is the planet that has to be used at the right moment, at the right time. I would say where people, when it comes to people doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, it's always Mars. The people who do that the most, it's Mars. Okay? Mars doesn't need to be used often. But if you don't use it when you need it, it'll kill you faster than any other planet that you don't use properly. It really, really will. Because when you're using your Mars, you're fighting for your life. You're really actually fighting for your life. When you eat bitter herbs, you're doing it because you're ill and you're fighting for your life by eating those gross herbs. Okay? When you need to use your Mars, you are fighting for your life. Mars is your immune system. Okay? It's the strength in your bones, of your marrow, to keep you alive and to keep you going towards the goal of your bones, which is your sun. Your bones are what you are, to be what you are, to have an experience of yourself. And if you don't do that, you start dying. You're killing yourself if you don't use your Mars when you need to. Because that means the enemy is winning. The conditioning is winning. That's the real enemy. And yes, that conditioning is going to speak as this person and that person. In fact, you can be talking to your spouse, and they can say something supportive towards what you want to do, and also say something that's the mirror of your mom saying, don't do that. And which sentence are you going to hear? You're going to hear the mirror image of your mom telling you not to do it. Okay? That's how conditioning works. It flavors what we actually see and hear. We're not working in a field of logic that this person said two things. We're operating in a field of illogic of the conditioning says that people will say this to me because my mama always said that, and so now my spouse just said it too. And the other thing my spouse said I didn't hear. That's how conditioning works. You basically are dumped the motors. Let's do something with these parts. And then you take half the parts and you throw them away and you say, these are the only parts that matter. Because my mom said nuts matter, not bolts. So you throw all the bolts away. And now you have a pile of nuts. And you can't do anything with a pile of nuts. Okay? So, you have to use your Mars when you have to use it, or you'll die more than any other planet. You literally will. That's why Mars rules accidents. Things that kill you all of a sudden. Sudden death. These are all Mars things. No time to say goodbye. Just boom, and you're broken. Boom, and you're in the hospital. Boom, you're dead. Those things can happen if you get far enough off track. Because there's a point where you get far enough off track in your life that there's no point in being here, and you attract these catastrophes when you get that far out. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then the only thing that can happen is conflict and disaster, the worst aspects of Mars. Okay? So you have to use your Mars when you feel it. That means you know what you need to do, but there's a conflict that says don't do it. Okay? If you were the only person on earth, would you do it? You'd probably do it. Okay? Still might not, because you've got these moral conflicts that have been hammered into you too. Although it's hard to think about morality if you're the only person on earth. But I'm sure you could if you were really conditioned. So it's so important to recognize how important this Mars is. And if you're not fighting the fights that you need, then all that frustration is going to cause you to struggle against things you don't need. So it'll get you involved in things like arguing with people about things that don't even matter. Pushing people on things that don't even matter to your life. Okay, that's obvious. We see a lot of that with bad habit Mars. But then there's the more subtle ones. Of spending a lot of time struggling with things that aren't even going to make you happier. That have nothing to do with who you really are and the experiences you really need. But there you are, spending 12 hours a day hammering on those things. Instead of using that Mars on those few times you need to say, this is how I'm going to be. Against the whole world or against a memory of a parent that passed already, that still has you by the balls. Okay? That's how we have to use our Mars. So good habit Mars, people just naturally do this. And a good habit Mars doesn't create a lot of conflict in doing it usually. You know, I see this. I'm amazed at people with better Mars, how easily they walk through life. When we have a bad Mars, a bad habit Mars, any bad habit planet has a stress attached to it. Okay? A stress that hammered that conditioning in. And therefore made us feel paralyzed and unable when we have to use that planet. So instead of doing what we know we need to do, we do something else. We follow some other guidance, some other bullshit. With Mars, what's happened is that when you did things growing up, the repercussions for doing something that was not desired was greater than it should have been. So you're basically used to severe repercussions of some sort. You know, all I did was ask if I could have the toy, and I'm yelled at for half an hour that I'm an idiot. That's a severe repercussion. When a child asks for a toy, you say, actually, I can't afford that toy right now, or actually, I'm saving my money to buy you something else for Christmas, or if you want that toy, you can do some work around the house and earn that toy. You know, those are healthy repercussions, okay? But if you yell at the kid and call them an idiot, and why would you ever want that, you know, even for 1 minute, that's a severe repercussion, all right? And then the kid goes and does something, you know, say they get a job. I know one person, they got a job, and their parent didn't like that they had the job, and they got yelled at to the point of physical contact over them getting a job. It's like a severe repercussion because a 16-year-old or 17-year-old or something kid wanted a job. It's like, wow. There's parents out there that give us severe repercussions for things that other parents would be proud of. Well, that's some of your experiences if you have afflicted Mars, a bad habit Mars. The repercussions of trying to be yourself were unusually great. They were greater than merited. Okay? Yes, your parents always going to agree with you. All right? But that doesn't mean it merits some kind of a punishment or a severe repercussion that's deeply painful. And if it is, whenever it gets to that point where you think, I'm going to do something that's going to make somebody on earth upset, you can't do it. Because your idea of doing something that makes somebody upset equals severe repercussions. Repercussions that are greater than doing that thing. The joy of having a little toy is not worth the repercussions of getting yelled at and called an idiot for half an hour, right? It's just not. It's like, bad deal. Why would I do it? So that same feeling comes up when somebody has a bad Mars, a bad habit Mars, that if I do this, the repercussions will be greater than the reward of doing it, because that's what they've been trained to believe. If instead they were told, you can have that toy, but you're going to have to clean the basement for 3 weekends in a row. Now the repercussions of having that toy are reasonable. Depending on the basement, of course, okay? Are reasonable. And the kid goes, okay, I'm willing to fight for that toy by cleaning the basement. You know? I could win that fight. But I can't win the fight as a 5-year-old when my dad is calling me an idiot for half an hour and so angry at me for wanting that toy that I'm scared if I move, he's going to slap me. You know? When you have repercussions that are greater than the joy something that could give you, when you know you need to do something for yourself, you just have this feeling of, oh, if I do that, the whole world will end. The repercussions will be much greater than anything I could possibly get from it, so I'm not doing it. Okay? So there's always a stress training every time we get in the bad habit of a planet. So it was a good habit then. You couldn't fight your dad, you know, as a 5-year-old yelling at you when you have a vocabulary of 20 words, right? You can't win that fight. You can't explain to him why you really need that toy. Well, I need that toy because I was watching, you know, astrologyvideos.com, and this toy, even though it's stupid and I'm probably going to get sick of it in a week, is going to give me experience that will help me discover myself. Ernst said so. No, the 5-year-old can't say that. He can't win the argument. So he does the best thing in that situation. He shuts up, he tries not to cry, and he acts normal. 30 years later, there's something you need to experience. And what do? Oh, if I do that, my whole world will end. So I'm going to shut up, tell myself I can live without that toy, and now I'm going to work, and you go to work and you have an accident. And you break your leg, and now you have a mobility issue. That's bad Mars. Okay? So realize the repercussions now that you're an adult are not going to be as great. One person I know with a great Mars, you know, has a good Mars, he was doing a dangerous sport. And his mom said, you really shouldn't do that. You could really hurt yourself. And he just said, Mom, I understand that, because at the time, you know, he had a broken shoulder, right? He's like, I know that, but if I don't do this, there's just really no point in me living. He's basically saying, I need this experience. It's worth the danger to me. Mom was like, I get that. Okay, I understand that. All right, he got through that phase of his life. He didn't die. He's styling in life these days. He's doing very, very well for himself. Okay? So, that's all the fight it should take. Someone says no, you explain yourself, and they go, I get it. The problem is if you have a bad habit planet, you always have to work past that. See, anytime any planet's in a bad habit, there's going to be someone somewhere saying, no, don't do that. And you always have to use your Mars. So even if all your planets any of your planets that are bad, at some level, you're going to have to use your Mars to dig yourself out from under that planet. You're going to have to say, I have to fight for what's really me in this. I have to be willing to accept the repercussions. Okay? However large they may be. And you'll find the repercussions are usually not as large as you imagine. Because you're imagining those repercussions as a 5-year-old boy getting chewed out for wanting a toy. Okay? In the real world, the repercussions might be severe. But if what you're doing is really right for you, the rewards will outweigh the repercussions. And that's all that has to happen. Mars is an extension of Venus. Venus is all about, is it worth it? Mars is the damage going to be worth what I get? Okay? The damage, yes, the war, the butcher's bill they call it. How many dead bodies? How many destroyed cities? How much shit in our life blowing up? Yeah, it'll blow up at times with Mars, but is it worth what you get at the end of the battle? If you're following who's really you, it will be. And so we have to just say, whatever the repercussions, if I'm really truly know this is what I really have to do, I'll accept them. Because we're scared if Mars is in a bad condition, is in a bad habit, to suffer the repercussions. Because we've been trained, the repercussions are greater than the gift. That was true then when you had no power, when you were a 5-year-old arguing with a 35-year-old. But now it's you, as a mature person, and you have a fighting chance at least. Okay? So this is Mars. And Mars is so important because, like I said, any planet that has any difficulties attached, how are you going to get out from under it? You're going to get out from under the difficulties of that planet using your Mars. Approaching that thing with an innocent mind and not allowing yourself to be conditioned in the way that you're conditioned on that planet. So that instead of following your conditioning and the bullshit, you can use that planet to follow yourself. That's why Mars is such an important planet. People with troubled Mars, boy do they suffer. They really, really do, because Mars is the battle planet. Every time you have to go to war to fix a planet, you're pulling out your Mars. And so if your Mars is a bad general, he can't lead Venus, Jupiter, the Sun, Saturn, anybody to victory. So you have to have your Mars good. It's very important. And of course, if we're not fighting the battle for our life, then what are we doing? We're having drunken brawls over things that don't matter. Which means we argue with people. We go around causing trouble. You know those people that are going around and, fighting everyone around things that are stupid? They're picking fights, picking arguments, even picking fist fights, but mostly picking arguments. That just shows they are not, trying to fix people, fix things that aren't broken, fix things that aren't their business, because they're not using their Mars to progress their own life. There's something that they aren't doing for themselves that they need to. Or are they being a nice version of that, fixing other things for everyone else? Yeah, I'll fix your life, but forget my life. Or they're focused on putting a lot of energy into things that at the end of the day don't make them happy. Mars is when we put a huge energy into something. Okay, I put this huge energy into this thing just now. And then you don't have to do it. It's not an everyday thing. Mars is a planet you just use on occasion. We're never meant to use Mars every day. But you see people who are just using Mars every day on anything that they can find. Okay, you're just seeing them being Mars every day on something every day. It's because they're not using their Mars to progress their life. And so they're using their Mars all over the place. It really is like, imagine an army without a general. The trouble they're going to cause, right? Okay, the energy they're going to waste. You need to have that general who's disciplined, who lines the army up and says, we're not moving, stand still, shoulders back, head square, until, all right, now we move. And then the movement is just one action, it's done, it's finished, and then we go back to enjoying all the other planets until the next time the army has to come to the surface. Okay. A lot more details coming up on Mars as all the planets when I get into the actual Avestas. Okay, thank you.